Hi, I'm Lorianne. At my mother's funeral, my sister stood at the podium and called herself the only daughter, while I sat in the back, not even listed in the program. A week later, she showed up at my door, asking for money, after taking everything. But it didn't stop there. She forged documents, tried to sell the house, told the world I abandoned our mother, when I was the one who held her hand the night she died. What happens when the person who shares your blood rewrites your place in the family? And what do you do when silence is no longer protection, but permission? They said the service would begin at noon, but I was there by 10. I didn't want to run into Delphine before I had to. The parking lot was still mostly empty when I pulled in, the sky over Fresno already starting to sweat. I sat in my car longer than I should have, staring at the chapel doors. The air conditioning hummed in the background, steady and disinterested. I had worn the same navy suit I used to wear when I pitched to clients back in San Diego. I hadn't buttoned it in months. It felt stiff now, like armor that had stopped fitting me the moment I decided to give up that life and take care of Mom. Inside, the first thing I noticed was the welcome board, in loving memory of Maureen Greaves, remembered by her beloved daughter, Delphine Caro. That was it. No mention of me. No, survived by both daughters. Just her. I stood there for a beat too long. The woman setting up flowers asked if I was the florist. I said nothing and walked past. The chapel was quiet, except for the shuffle of programs being laid on chairs. I grabbed one. Front cover, Mom's photo from 10 years ago, the one Delphine insisted on. Inside, under family acknowledgments, it read, "Survived by her eldest daughter, Delphine Caro, and her devoted caregiver, Lorianne Blythe." Caregiver. Not daughter, not even youngest daughter, just caregiver. My fingers clenched the edge of the paper. I felt something between embarrassment and disbelief crawl up my throat. A whisper behind me. 2 women, older, dressed in beige. "Is that the nurse?" "No, I think she's the one who helped out. Not family, though." I didn't turn around. I folded the program once, then again, and slipped it into my purse without looking. People began arriving in clusters. Hugs, murmurs, the same tired condolences. "She was a saint." "She'll be missed." Such a strong woman. Most of them looked past me like I was part of the staff. Some nodded, unsure whether to say hello. At exactly noon, Delphine stepped up to the pulpit. Her dress was black but fashionable, expensive-looking, too fitted for mourning. Her mascara already ran slightly, as if she'd practiced the smudge. She cleared her throat like she was about to accept an award. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice just shaky enough to sound believable. "Our mother, my mother, was the most loyal, most loving woman I've ever known. She gave everything for this family. She was my best friend." I stood in the back, near the wall, arms crossed tightly. Not once did her eyes meet mine. No one asked if I wanted to speak. There wasn't a slot for me on the program anyway. Delphine continued. "She told me, just a few weeks before she passed, that I was her rock, that I made her proud every single day." I could almost hear her rehearsing those lines in her bathroom mirror. The audience nodded. A few sniffles echoed down the pews. Someone even clapped once before stopping themselves. I looked down at my hands. The same hands that held a spoon to Mom's mouth when she couldn't lift a fork. The same hands that changed her bedding at 3 a.m. The same ones that signed her hospice documents when no one else would. I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. I walked calmly out the side aisle and into the empty hallway. My heels clicked against the tile with every step, but nobody noticed. I found a bench by the restroom door and sat. My palms were still open in my lap, fingers curled slightly, like they were remembering how it felt to hold hers during her last breath. I thought about the night she passed, how I stayed up with her till morning, how Delphine didn't even call until noon the next day. I didn't expect gratitude. Not really, but I didn't expect erasure either. After a while, I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and walked back into the chapel just as the slideshow started. Delphine had selected the photos, Mom's birthdays, holidays, vacations, but not a single one with me. If I was in the background, I was cropped. If I was smiling, the frame ended just before my shoulder. There she was, our mother, smiling on screen next to Delphine in picture after picture. A curated history, a version of our family where I didn't exist. And yet, there I was, alive, breathing, watching it unfold like I'd wandered into someone else's life. They clapped when the slideshow ended. Not a standing ovation, but enough. Enough for her. She erased me in front of a room full of people, and they clapped. The applause still rang faintly in my ears as I stepped into the guest hall. The lights here were dimmer, warmer. A shallow hum of conversation floated above the soft instrumental jazz, playing from a Bluetooth speaker someone had stashed near the gift table. Round tables were dressed in off-white linen, small plates of finger food arranged neatly. I knew every detail because I had paid for every last piece of it, down to the lemon wedges beside the iced tea. I wasn't in the room more than 2 minutes before the first woman, an aunt from my father's side, I think, wrapped me in a quick hug and said, "You must be Delphine's friend, right? You did such a beautiful job helping out." Helping out. I gave her a tight smile and nodded. I didn't correct her. By the third hug and fourth person calling me such a kind volunteer, I realized Delphine had made sure I'd be remembered the way she wanted me remembered, if at all. She'd always been clever about that. Let people think what they want, as long as she laid the breadcrumbs. Near the dessert table, 2 older cousins I barely recognized were chatting. "Delphine's been incredible," one said, picking at a deviled egg. "She told me she covered everything, flowers, food, even the chapel fee. That must have cost her a fortune." The other shook her head, mouth half full. "She's always been the responsible one. Remember how she planned Grandpa's 70th? Girl doesn't play around." I stayed behind a display of roses until their voices faded. My fingers curled around the clutch bag I held, nails digging in through the fabric. I didn't need to look at my banking app. I already knew the final number, $15,168. No one else had paid a dime. Delphine hadn't held a job in almost 3 years. I moved toward the tribute table. The centerpiece was a framed photograph, propped up by a brass easel, one I hadn't seen before. It was Mom's last birthday. I'd taken the picture myself. I stepped closer. She and Delphine were seated side by side, smiling. The cake sat in front of them, candles still lit. But something was off. I wasn't there. I remembered that night clearly. I sat across from them. I took the picture on my phone. I should have been visible in the mirror behind them, but in this version, the mirror was just reflectionless glare. I leaned in. The crop was precise, clean. I hadn't just been cut. I'd been replaced by blank space. "She edited me out," I said under my breath, and for the first time that day, I didn't feel grief. I didn't even feel sad. I felt cold. I turned and made my way across the room. Delphine stood near the wine table, surrounded by a cluster of guests, all smiling too much. Her voice was light, like she didn't have a care in the world. As I passed behind her, I paused just long enough to say, without looking at her, "Nice edit. Really subtle." She didn't turn, just lifted her glass, took a sip, and said, "Some of us were meant to be remembered." There it was again, that tone. Like she wasn't just claiming space, she was reclaiming history. I didn't reply. Not there. Not in front of everyone. I kept walking until I found the corner by the windows, away from the buzz and the soft music and the pretend morning. I looked out at the garden where they'd planted a new dogwood tree in Mom's honor. Delphine had ordered the plaque. It read, "In memory of Maureen Greaves, loved deeply by her daughter Delphine. Just Delphine." She didn't just steal the spotlight. She erased my place in the family story. After the last of the guests trickled out, I found myself in the back hallway again, my shoes finally silent against the carpet. The reception was over, but my mind wouldn't stop pacing. That final insult, Her name on the plaque, just hers, clung to me like smoke. It wasn't about sharing the moment. It was about being deliberately left out of it. I sat in the guest lounge beside the chapel, where the flowers had been gathered up and the last tray of sandwiches sat wilting. The air felt different there, less performative, more still. I pulled my phone from my purse, not to scroll, but to open the image I'd been keeping. A photo of a page, really. Mom's hospice schedule. My name filled every line. And in the middle of that page, there was Delphine's name, once, crossed out in my mother's own handwriting. I let my finger rest on that mark for a few seconds. Then, I looked up at the ceiling and closed my eyes. 3 weeks earlier, the house had been quieter than usual, the kind of quiet that carried weight. It was late, maybe close to 1 in the morning, when I heard her voice. Faint, like it barely cleared her lips. Lo? I was in the kitchen, still in my robe, stirring soup over the stove. I'd made a habit of prepping something warm for her in the middle of the night. She couldn't eat much, but the ritual mattered. It helped us both pretend the end wasn't quite here yet. I set the ladle down, wiped my hands on the towel at my hip, and walked down the hallway. The house creaked gently with age, as if holding its breath. She was propped up on the adjustable bed, the lamp casting a soft yellow pool across her frail frame. Her eyes were clearer than usual, but her skin looked thinner somehow, more transparent. I didn't think you were awake, I said gently. I can't sleep. She smiled weakly. My thoughts are louder than the oxygen machine. I pulled the blanket up around her shoulders and sat beside her. Her hand reached for mine, fingers cold, unsteady. I've been thinking, she said, voice almost brittle, about how I raised you two, and where I got it wrong. You don't need to go into all that now, Mom. I do, because you need to hear it from me, not through court papers. She squeezed my hand, or tried to. I let Delphine talk louder than you ever cried. I believed what I wanted to believe about her, that she was struggling, not selfish, that she meant well, even when she didn't show up. I didn't say anything, not yet. I let her keep going. I changed the will, a couple of months ago. Constance helped me file everything. It's legal, final. Her eyes flicked up, searching mine. You're the only one who showed up, Lo, not just at the end. You were here for all the hard parts. You saw me when I wasn't anything close to strong or proud. That's what matters. Not who I gave birth to first, not who posted more photos online. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, heavy with acknowledgement. I reached for the washcloth I kept on her nightstand and pressed it gently against her forehead. She closed her eyes under the pressure. I wasn't here for the will, I murmured, or for some grand gesture. I was here because I remember you used to make cinnamon toast when I had fevers. You'd bring it to my bed with ginger ale and sit with me till I fell asleep. She opened her eyes again, glassy now. I wasn't always good to you, she whispered, but I see you now. I need you to promise me something. Okay. Promise me you won't let her rewrite this. Not the will, not the truth. Don't let her make me a liar when I'm gone. My throat tightened, but I nodded. I won't let her erase you either. She nodded back. Her hand rested in mine a while longer, her breath slowing. When I finally left the room to grab her soup, she had already drifted off. She never finished that bowl. It stayed on the nightstand until the next morning, untouched. Back in the guest lounge, present day again, I folded the photo of the hospice schedule and placed it carefully back into my wallet. I ran my fingers over the worn edges. She promised she wouldn't let her be erased, and now, neither will I. The morning after the funeral, I poured my second cup of coffee before the first had cooled. The house was quiet. Too quiet for someone who'd just buried her mother and hosted 70 guests who barely remembered her name. My inbox was full of payment confirmations, floral invoices, and a thank you note template the funeral home had auto-generated with Delphine's name pre-filled. Of course it was. I was sitting at my desk going through receipts when I heard a knock on the door. Not a buzz or a doorbell chime, just 3 firm raps. That rhythm that says, I didn't call first because I don't care. I stood slowly, the weight in my chest already telling me who it was. I opened the door, and there she was. Sunglasses, no makeup. Hair pulled back carelessly like she'd rolled out of bed and decided not to try too hard. A weathered hoodie hung off her shoulders, sleeves pushed up like she wanted me to think she'd been working. She hadn't. Can we talk? She said, voice low, like she was the one walking on eggshells. I didn't invite her in, just leaned my shoulder against the doorframe and waited. She cleared her throat. I've been thinking. Look, you got the will, you got everything. I got nothing, not even Mom's jewelry. You know that wasn't fair. I didn't blink. She kept going. All I'm asking is a little help with rent. You've got your online store, your savings. Mom gave you the house. I'm not trying to fight, okay? I'm in a tight spot. You mean the spot you made for yourself? I asked, flat. Her mouth tightened. You think I deserve this? Really? After everything? I didn't respond. She took my silence as permission to keep digging. I mean, Mom never said you were perfect. She told me plenty of times you were cold, controlling, hard to love. You think this little Florence Nightingale routine makes up for how you've always looked down on me? I stepped outside and pulled the door closed behind me, so we stood face to face. You came to my door after stealing my name, my credit, and my grief. You think asking for money erases that? She raised her chin. I just thought you'd be decent enough to remember we're family. I folded my arms. You remembered that too late. She scoffed. You really think Mom would have wanted this? Us like this? You keeping everything while I beg for scraps? She didn't want this. That's why she changed the will. Delphine's jaw clenched. You think that makes you the hero? No, but it makes me the one who showed up. That was the end of it. She turned without another word and walked off my porch like she hadn't just torn open the ugliest parts of our past. 2 days later, she texted, I'll be at Brit Cafe at noon, if you change your mind. I went. It was a neutral place, not far from downtown. I picked a booth by the window. Delphine walked in 10 minutes late, wearing lipstick this time, as if that would make her case stronger. She didn't order, just sat down and got straight to it. I know we're not close, she began, but you and I both know Mom played favorites. I had my issues fine, but you never forgave me for needing help. You didn't need help, I said. You needed an audience. That stung. I saw it flash across her face, just for a second. You don't even need the money, she snapped. This isn't about Mom. This is about punishing me. No, I replied. This is about you lying again. This is about you still using her name, like it owes you something. She rolled her eyes. God, you're so sanctimonious. Always have been. Just say it. You want me to suffer. I shook my head. I just want you to stop taking things that aren't yours. She stood. This was a waste of time. Then she was gone. Later that evening, I checked my mail. A cream envelope with the bank's logo caught my eye. I opened it while standing by the kitchen sink. It was a final statement from Mom's credit card. Her name still printed on top. Maureen Greaves. Charges dated just 48 hours earlier. $43.20 to Uber Eats, $96.50 to Sephora, $19.99 for a monthly wine box. Same card, same account. But Mom had been dead for over a week. The IP address tied to the charges? Delphine's apartment. I didn't gasp or cry. I didn't even feel shocked. She didn't just ask, I said quietly. She stole again. I sat down at my desk, pulled out my phone, and dialed Constance. Her voice came through on the second ring. Lorianne? I need to talk, I said, about credit card fraud, on an account that should have been closed. There was a pause. Then Constance said, I was wondering when you'd be ready to stop protecting her. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew in that moment. I wasn't protecting her anymore. I was protecting what Mom left behind. Not just the house or the finances, but her wishes, her trust. This time, she won't just lie and walk away. not if I stand in her way. 2 days after I called Constance, I woke up to a ping from my phone that didn't feel like any other notification. It wasn't a message or email. It was a live video alert. The title caught my eye before I even opened it. My Truth as a Daughter, What They Don't Want You to Know. I didn't need to guess who had posted it. I watched from the kitchen counter, still in my pajamas, coffee cooling in the mug beside me. There she was, Delphine, on Facebook Live, sitting in her car, tears streaming like she had practiced each one. Her voice cracked perfectly, just enough to sound believable to people who didn't know her. "I never left Mom's side," she said into the camera. "I gave up everything to be there for her. And now my own sister is trying to make me out to be some kind of criminal." Her voice wavered, then steadied. "I know what real love looks like. I saw it in Mom's eyes every day. Not once did she say she didn't want me around." The comments started rolling in fast. "Stay strong. You were always the better daughter." "Some people only show up for the money." Hearts floated across the screen like confetti at a pity parade. I didn't react, not outwardly. I just walked over to my desk, pulled open the drawer, and took out the USB drive I had saved months ago. The hospice logs, time-stamped, signed, dated, sealed. Every visit, every shift, every day she didn't show up. I didn't upload anything yet. I just set the drive beside my laptop and sat there, letting the weight of it all settle into my chest like a stone. Later that afternoon, I checked the Facebook group my neighbor had added me to last year, Fresno Families United. I hadn't opened it in months. This time, the posts were waiting for me. Anyone else uncomfortable with how the younger daughter handled the memorial? I heard she didn't even arrive on time to the funeral. So disrespectful. My cousin worked at the care center, said she was cold to everyone, especially her mom. I stared at the screen. My name wasn't in the posts, but it didn't have to be. The intention was clear, and it spread fast. The notifications piled up. Direct messages from strangers. One said, "God sees everything, even if the courts don't." Another, "If my mom died, I wouldn't be so smug." I didn't respond. I didn't block them. I just let the silence sit for a while. That night, after dinner, I opened my laptop and wrote a single email to Constance. No intro, no fluff, just attachments, hospice rotation schedule, medical invoices, a log of every visitor, proof that Delphine's name never appeared in the final 90 days, and one sentence, "I'm ready to defend my truth." The next morning, I wrote a public post, not on my personal page, but on the same group where they'd dragged my name through the digital mud. It wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was plain, measured, clinical. While my mother was dying, I didn't have time to rehearse anything. I was busy taking care of her. Some people perform for sympathy, others just do the work. Attached were photos, notes, time logs, all dated, all real. I disabled comments before I hit post. I didn't refresh the page. I didn't read reactions. I left it there like a plaque in stone. No argument, no explanation. Later that day, I saw Delphine's response. A screenshot from her live video. Captioned, "When the truth hurts, some people run to spreadsheets." The likes poured in. I didn't care. Let her gather her audience. I had my records, and soon, I'd have something else. That evening, while sitting on the porch with my tea, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a stranger, it was Constance. "Do you still want to move forward?" she asked. "Because if you do, I can have the paperwork filed by Monday." I looked out at the street, quiet, dusky, the day cooling into something calm. "Yes," I said. She wanted attention. Now she'll have all eyes on her in court. The next week moved fast, like time was trying to outrun the truth. I stayed off social media, stayed off group chats, stayed off anything that echoed Delphine's voice. But what I didn't stay off was official channels. I watched the case build from my laptop, page by page, timestamp by timestamp, like stacking bricks around a house that had been left open too long. It was Thursday morning when I got the alert. An automatic email from the county clerk's office. Property transfer request. Filed under Maureen Greaves. I clicked, scrolled, and there it was. Filed under Delphine's name. Marked as sold. The date of sale, 2 days ago. The buyer, listed as a private cash party. The seller's signature? Maureen's. I stared at that signature for a long time. I knew every curl of Mom's writing. This wasn't hers. It was similar, but off. Slanted wrong, looped too smooth. Like someone had practiced. Delphine had only ever seen Mom's signature once. I remembered clearly. It was on a tax return Mom had asked me to help with 2 years ago. Delphine had hovered, asked about a refund she wasn't entitled to, watched as Mom signed at the bottom. It hit me then, not just the gall, but the plan. She'd been waiting to use that moment for something like this. I printed the documents. Then I called Constance. We met the next morning in her office. She had already pulled the file before I arrived. When I walked in, she motioned to a chair and placed a thick binder between us. "Brace yourself," she said. "I've been holding on to this since before your mother passed." She opened the binder. Inside were 3 key documents. The first, an updated will, notarized, naming me as the sole legal beneficiary. No split, no shared ownership, just my name. The second, a log signed by a third-party notary, proof of the meeting, the time, the state of mind. No coercion, no confusion. The third, a sealed envelope, my name on the front, Mom's handwriting. I stared at it for a few seconds before picking it up. I broke the seal. "To the one who stayed when staying cost everything," it began. My hands didn't shake, but my throat tightened as I read. "I know this isn't a prize," the letter went on, "but it's a way to say I saw you, even when I didn't always act like it. You earned more than a house. You earned peace, and I want to give you as much of it as I can." I folded the letter neatly and tucked it into my purse. Constance cleared her throat. "Now," she said, tapping the folder, "you want to press forward with fraud, or hold this back for leverage?" "I want her exposed," I said quietly. "No more soft landings." Constance nodded. "Then we'll file under both estate fraud and identity misrepresentation. And when the house listing goes public, because she will try again, we'll have everything in place." That afternoon, I sat with a probate attorney, filed the fraud report, and submitted copies of the forged documents, my mother's signature samples, and the Facebook harassment archive. Everything Delphine had touched, twisted, or tampered with was now evidence. By Monday morning, Delphine had been served. I didn't call her. I didn't respond to the voicemails. But I saw her panic online, passive-aggressive status updates, vague posts like, "Some people forget who family really is," and "I never asked for much, just not to be erased." She always had a flair for victimhood. I spent the next day cleaning the house. The kind of cleaning where you throw out things you didn't realize you'd been holding on to. Pill bottles with expired prescriptions, a shawl that still faintly smelled like Vicks, hospital forms crumpled at the bottom of drawers. I didn't cry. I didn't linger. I just made space. By sunset, I was out in the yard, watering the rosebush Mom used to sit beside every spring. I looked up at the windows of the house. This house she wanted to leave to someone who wouldn't turn it into a transaction. I whispered, "It's not revenge, it's restoration." And I meant it. This wasn't about punishing Delphine anymore. This was about correcting the record, about honoring the woman who, at the end, had seen things clearly, even if it had taken too long. She used lies to take what wasn't hers. Now the truth will take it back. 3 days passed after the summons had been served. Long enough for the shock to wear off, but not long enough for Delphine to sit with it. That morning, while making labels for shipping orders in the kitchen, I noticed my dashboard was acting strange. At first, it was a handful of refund requests, nothing that raised a flag. But by noon, they came in waves. Canceled orders, strange usernames with no history, multiple chargebacks logged within hours. I clicked through messages. They weren't about product defects. They weren't even from real buyers. They read like a coordinated attack. Liar. You steal from the dead. Scamming people under your mother's name? Classy. My heart didn't race. I'd learned by now to go still before reacting. I cross-referenced the complaint emails with the spam tracker Constance had once told me about. The source? An IP linked to an old domain, delphinecarowrites.com, her defunct blog from 2018. She hadn't posted in years, but apparently the login still worked. By evening, Etsy had flagged my store. They'd pause my payouts for manual review, pending verification, so that's how she wanted to play it. The next morning, a neighbor sent me a text with a screenshot. Hey, thought you might want to know. Your house is on Craigslist, again. I followed the link. My stomach turned. A full listing. Charming 3-bedroom bungalow, cash only, no agents, serious buyers only. Priced at $89,000. Laughable. The market value was double that. But it wasn't the price that hit me. It was the contact number. I recognized it. Jaren's prepaid phone, Delphine's son. I called the number. It rang twice, then straight to voicemail. Hi, this is Jay. Can't pick up. Text me. I didn't text. I called the city records office instead. As expected, no legitimate sale had been filed. No MLS listing. No permission to sell. She wasn't trying to sell the house. She was trying to make it look unstable. Unclaimed. Confused. Like something caught in probate limbo, so someone, somewhere, might bite. I tried calling Delphine. Blocked. By early afternoon, I was behind the wheel, driving to the apartment she'd moved into 6 months before Mom passed. The one she'd claimed was just temporary until she got back on her feet. I parked down the street and walked up the worn steps. The complex was quiet. Midday sun beating down. Not a car on the block. She opened the door halfway. No greeting. Just her eyebrows lifted like she'd been expecting me. You're fast, she said, arms crossed. Figured it might take you a week to find the ad. You can't sell something that isn't yours, I said. I'm not selling, she replied. Just testing the waters. No harm in gauging interest, right? It's fraud. It's Craigslist, she said with a shrug. People post garbage every day. You can't sue over curiosity. I stepped closer. You forged a signature, filed false paperwork, and now you're trying to scare off any potential legal interest in the house. You think I don't see the pattern? She smirked. You can't sue for a house if no one will buy from you. There it was. The slip. The intent. You tried to erase me at Mom's funeral, I said quietly. Now you're trying to erase her home. That ends here. She leaned against the doorframe. You always act like you're above it all. But we both know, deep down, you love being the martyr. I turned away without responding. Back at home, I took screenshots of the Craigslist listing, saved the HTML source, logged the time, sent everything to Constance and the estate's fraud liaison. The reply from the clerk was short and to the point. Active violation of standing injunction, escalating to judicial enforcement. I sat in my office with the curtains half closed, the light outside starting to soften as the day began its quiet retreat. I wasn't angry, not the kind of anger that needed yelling or slamming drawers. I cleaned the living room instead, folded blankets, watered the plants, moved my mother's favorite chair a little closer to the window. That night, I prepared a small dinner, ate alone, and turned my phone to silent. I wasn't avoiding the noise. I was choosing not to participate. Delphine wanted me scattered. She wanted me unraveled. She wanted me to lash out, make mistakes, prove her narrative right. But I'd been through enough to know that real strength doesn't shout. It acts. She thought playing dirty would keep me quiet. But I've learned to fight fire without burning myself. By the time the weekend rolled in, my phone had gone blissfully silent. No more fake buyers. No petty emails from strangers who believed a curated live stream. No more late-night Craigslist listings. I kept everything forwarded to Constance. I didn't have the energy to answer pettiness with more pettiness. Sunday night, just past midnight. I was about to plug in my phone and turn out the lights when a message lit up my screen. The name stopped me. Joran Caro, Delphine's son. He'd never reached out to me directly before, barely spoke at the funeral. I hesitated before opening it. Hey, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I remember you being with Grandma every day when she got bad. You were the one who helped her sleep. She told me that once, that you helped her breathe easier. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, heart not racing, but quietly folding inward. Then came the next message. I don't know what's true anymore, but thank you. He didn't say more. He didn't need to. The next day, I received an invite for a family lunch organized by Mom's cousin Claire. She had mentioned wanting to do something more personal, less performative than the funeral. A chance for the family to talk without the pressure. I almost declined. But I went. It was held in a small event room at a quiet restaurant in downtown Fresno. White tablecloths, pre-printed menus, a simple photo of Mom framed by the door, this time with no edits. Just her. Laughing. Wrinkles visible, makeup slightly smudged. Real. I walked in 5 minutes early and was greeted by polite nods and half hugs. Claire came over and squeezed my shoulder. I'm glad you came, she said softly. Delphine showed up 20 minutes late, wearing heels and a smug expression. She made her rounds quickly, smiling, laughing too loudly, correcting people who didn't recall details quite right. No, it was me who brought Mom her favorite soup when she was at home. Lorian had work that day, I think. I didn't interrupt. I just watched. We sat through lunch, chicken marsala and iced tea, when the conversation turned toward Mom's final months. A few people said the usual. She had such strength, or she never complained. And then the room quieted. A voice at the far end of the table broke the lull. Aunt Melba. She hadn't spoken much all lunch. She was in her 70s now, sharp as ever, and didn't bother with pleasantries. She stood, slowly, and rested her hands on the back of her chair. I want to say something, she said, before anyone else spins this story into something it's not. Delphine's fork stopped mid-air. I visited Maureen often, not every day, but enough, and we talked. More than you might think. She looked directly at Delphine. She told me, months before she passed, my younger daughter is my witness. If anything's left of me, it's her. A silence spread like spilled wine. She said Lorian was the one who saw her, Aunt Melba continued. Saw her in pain, saw her fears, saw her truth. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. Delphine didn't speak. Her face drained of color. Someone at the table, maybe Cousin Rachel, murmured under her breath. We always wondered why Delphine didn't visit. The weight of the room shifted. Conversations became fragmented. Delphine left her seat. No scene, no comment. She just stood and walked out. Joren followed her silently, not meeting anyone's eyes. I stayed. Afterward, I walked the few blocks home alone. The sky was clear, just warm enough to carry the scent of spring. I passed a small florist's cart outside a corner market. The lilies caught my eye, bright white, just beginning to open. I almost bought them, but instead, I kept walking. At the cemetery gate, I stopped, reached into my purse, and pulled out the folded note I'd written earlier that week. I taped it to the gate softly, right below the bronze nameplate. You're not gone. You're just no longer in her shadow. And I meant it. For the first time, I felt no need to prove anything. Not to the family, not to the town, not even to myself. The record was correcting itself, organically, word by word, from people who had seen things unfold. It wasn't justice yet, but it was beginning. One more step, and the story she wrote about me would finally be undone. In court, in record, and in memory. The courthouse hallway smelled like freshly waxed tile and faint printer ink. I sat on the wooden bench outside Department 9B, hands resting on my lap, fingers still. Constance sat beside me, flipping through a file she had already memorized. Across the hall, the door creaked, and Delphine stepped out, alone. No attorney, no folder, just her purse and sunglasses, even though we were indoors. She glanced my way, but I didn't meet her eyes. I looked up instead, toward the ceiling, toward nothing in particular. Maybe toward Mom. The bailiff called us in. The room was nearly empty, no jury, just a judge, a clerk, and 2 witnesses who wouldn't need to speak. It was procedural. Clean. But my heart moved slow in my chest, like it knew what this meant. The judge's tone was steady, firm, without edge. He spoke as if he'd seen this 100 times and knew exactly how it would end before it even started. This court upholds the validity of the 2023 revised will. All assets named within are to be transferred to Ms. Lorian Blythe. The estate is settled. Court adjourned. That was it. I heard Constance whisper, "It's done." I stood, not fast, just enough to feel it in my knees. I walked out without looking back. I didn't need to. Outside, reporters waited. Not many, just 2 or 3 local faces with cameras. One asked if I had a statement. "There's no statement," I said, my voice calm. Just closure. They didn't press. When I got home, the sun was beginning to drop behind the neighbors' trees. The porch light hadn't come on yet. I stepped onto the welcome mat and noticed something taped to my front door. An envelope, no handwriting on the outside. Just taped neatly, sealed. I opened it inside at the kitchen table. A photo. It was the original from Mom's last birthday, the one Delphine had cropped for the funeral. But this was the full image. All 3 of us. Mom in the middle, me on one side, Delphine on the other. I had taken that picture with the timer and balanced the phone on a napkin dispenser. There was no note inside the envelope, nothing written on the back, just the photo. I didn't cry, I didn't frame it. I placed it in the drawer with Mom's last letter and closed it gently. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet, maybe. But not in a haunting way, more like a room that had been cleaned after guests overstayed their welcome. A text from a mutual acquaintance came through the following Friday. "Did you hear? Delphine got evicted. Joran's living with his dad now. She started a GoFundMe, but no one's donating." I didn't respond. The following Sunday, I bought lilies from the same florist stand I had passed a dozen times without stopping. I walked to the cemetery just after noon. It was warm but not hot, and the air held that kind of stillness you only get in spring when everything is beginning again. I knelt at Mom's grave, brushed away some dried leaves, and placed the lilies in the holder at the base of the stone. I didn't speak, not out loud. I just taped a new note behind the headstone, tucked low enough that only I would know it was there. "You chose me when it mattered, that's enough." And it was. I took the long way home, past the park where she used to walk before her knees gave out, past the corner bakery that had always overpriced the coffee she loved. The sidewalks weren't crowded. My phone buzzed a few times. I didn't check. Back on my porch, I sat with a blanket over my knees. A breeze caught the edge of the wind chime by the door, setting off a soft, clinking rhythm. My phone pinged again. I picked it up and smiled, just a little. A new order had come in for the handmade tea towels I'd listed the week before. Simple, embroidered, stitched with quotes about grace and strength and legacy. They weren't flashy, but they were mine. I opened my laptop and began typing a blog post I'd been working on in my head for weeks. When you're erased long enough, you start believing you were never there. But I was. And now the world knows it too. I paused, then added one last line. "Justice doesn't fix everything, but it gave me back my name."